Welcome to this year's TSS MUN Talk Conference. We hope that you'll be able to enjoy this short and informative display of what MUN can be like. MUN stands for Model United Nations, and that's exactly what it is. A simulation of the real United Nations. It is meant to serve as an educational experience for students. During these conferences, the students assume the roles of delegates and have the task to represent the position of a specific country on a given issue. Doing so in the spirit of the United Nations entails holding various speeches, engaging in constructive debate, and constantly maintaining diplomatic decorum. What you're about to see is a scripted replication of a real MUN conference, a simulation of the simulation. My colleague, who is playing the role of the United Nations Secretary General, is about to perform a so-called roll call. This is to establish the size of the committee and to mark the delegate as either present or present in voting. The difference being that if one decides to vote as present, they can choose to abstain at a later stage while voting, and if they were to choose present voting, they have to either vote for or against. Having said that, we'll now move on to a roll call.
Brazil, China,
Present and voting.
Colombia,
Present.
France,
Present.
Germany,
Present and voting.
India, Norway,
Present.
Iran,
Present and voting.
Russia,
Present and voting.
Saudi Arabia, Switzerland,
Present.
UK,
Present and voting.
United States of America,
Present and voting.
The ultimate goal of any conference is the creation of one or more resolutions. These are special documents that the delegates write, which propose original solutions to the conference topics. Having said that, are there any delegations who wish to be added to the speakers list? Raise your placards high and now.
recognizing USA, Iran, China, Germany, and Russia.
It is crucial that the speakers list never runs out, as that would mean forced entry into voting procedure. In simple terms, any unfinished resolution would be discarded. The speakers list will thus be opened with a speaking time of 45 seconds. USA, the floor is granted, the floor is yours.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, Abraham Lincoln once said, "Leave nothing for tomorrow which can be done today." The worldwide issue, that is climate change, has been ongoing for decades, which affects humans in various dreadful ways. The United States of America is convinced that this situation must be reversed. The United States of America calls for the extension of international organizations such as UNFCCC, IPCC, the World Bank, and others. The U.S. encourages other member states to implement similar national plans, such as halving its carbon emissions.
Thank you, Delegate.
The delegate from the United States of America exceeded the designated speaker's time and was cut off by the chair. Several seconds might seem insignificant in the context of this mock conference, but in a real setting, where hundreds of speeches are held over several days, interrupting speakers is a necessary evil. You might have also noticed that the delegate of Norway raised a so-called point. These can range from slight preferences like opening a window or increasing a microphone strength, simple procedural questions such as inquiring about the current procedure, to even correcting an error by the chair. This is a learning experience after all. Points can be raised at any time.
Unfortunately, such action is impossible at the moment because of the deliberate efforts of the Western powers to weaken the Iranian people. Instead of financing Iran's green transition, which they are obligated to do since they are responsible for about 80% of the world's emissions, the wealthy industrialized nations only prevent this transition from happening. Through denying access of funds allocated to Iran by the Global Environment Facility, through preventing the enrichment of uranium, which was only ever intended for peaceful purposes, and to treating Iran as a pariah. Actions effectively turning them into the real existential threat. Thank you. The delegate of Iran yields the floor.
Thank you, delegate. Delegation of China, the floor is yours. China is convinced that
fossil fuel energy should be gradually phased out as the leading powering source. Despite the fact that there's a long way to go, and the People's Republic of China would like to suggest a UN finance project, mostly to investors and government funds, for producing natural energy. Thank you.
When the chair asks for motions, the delegates are given the opportunity to change the flow of the conference. Motions can be brought in by anyone, but only at this time. Once all motions on the floor have been collected, they are voted upon in order of precedence. This means that the motions that suggest the biggest changes come first. Some require just half of the committee's approval, some require 2/3. You might still be a little confused about what motions actually are. Well, in several seconds you'll see a motion to increase the speaker's time, a motion to suspend the meeting, and later on a motion to enter voting procedure. If hearing suspend the meeting only made you more confused, don't worry, we'll explain that shortly as well.
At this point, are there any points or motions on the floor? Recognizing Germany?
Honorable Chair, the delegation wishes to raise the speaker's time to 60 seconds.
This motion is in order.
And will subsequently be voted upon. Having said that, all delegations in favor, please raise your placards high and now. All opposed? Seeing that there are no abstentions and a clear majority, this motion fully passes. Recognizing the delegation of Germany, the floor is yours.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, the challenge of climate protection is easier for all of us when we can trust that our partners around the world are pursuing the same goal. This is one of the reasons why we need a comprehensive agreement that will show us the way. 6 years ago, the German politics and environmental expert Klaus Töpfer said, "I am convinced that the future belongs to renewable energies, not just in Germany, but worldwide." Today, we have to ask those who still rely on old structures whether this is a sensible economic policy. Therefore, Germany believes that by 2030, strengthened international cooperation to encourage access to sustainable energy research and technology, including solar energy, cleaner fossil fuel energy, and encouraged investment in energy infrastructure should be fully possible. The Federal Republic of Germany hereby looks forward to fruitful debates with like-minded member states. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate.
Honorable Chair, distinguished delegates, climate change is one of the biggest problems in today's world, and the Russian Federation finds it impossible to deny its existence. The Russian Federation has made many internal policy changes to combat it. It signed the Paris Agreement back in 2015 because it's interested in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We're also prepared to help other developing countries to fight against climate change. Its biggest greenhouse gas emission seen comes from its greatly developed forestry sector, which has managed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 30%. Thus, it believes that developing the forestry sector in other UN countries will assist in the fight against climate change. The Russian Federation has set a short-term goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050 and a long-term goal of 0% greenhouse gas emissions by 2060. Furthermore, the Russian Federation believes that educating the public on how to reduce greenhouse gas emissions could help the UN in our common goal of reducing the rise of temperature around the planet together. Thank you.
At this point, are there any points or motions on the floor? Recognizing France?
Honorable Chair, the delegation of France would like to suspend the meeting for an unmoderated caucus for 2 minutes.
This motion is in order and will be voted upon. Having said that, any delegations in favor, please raise your placards high now. All opposed? Seeing there are no abstentions, this motion clearly passes. We will now move into an unmoderated caucus for 2 minutes. Now the meeting has been successfully suspended. That means that it's time for the real work to begin. During these sessions, commonly referred to as unmoderated caucuses, delegates with shared political interests come together and start working on the resolutions. Most of the time in the real conference will be spent in these unmoderated caucuses. However, don't be fooled. Being able to talk casually doesn't mean that the diplomatic decorum can be abandoned. The conference language, which will almost always be English, must also be kept. Typically, these caucuses would last much longer and be periodically scattered in between moderated sessions, but for the sake of the presentation, we'll imagine that the delegates were able to construct one good resolution in 2 minutes.
The chair would like to welcome all delegations back in formal session. Herewith, are there any points or motions on the floor? Recognizing Norway.
Honorable Chair, the delegation of Norway would like to move to voting procedure.
Thank you, delegate. This motion is now in order and we will cast a vote. All delegation in favor, please raise your placards high and now. Okay, thank you. All against? Thank you.
This motion clearly passes and will now move into voting procedure. At long last, we've almost reached the end. During the voting procedure, all resolutions that have been approved by the chair are voted upon. A resolution always requires a 2/3 majority to pass. However, like with most things in MUN, there's a twist. Delegations that aren't sponsors, meaning authors of a resolution, can try to change it so it better suits their personal interest. This is done by amendments. Once an amendment is proposed, the sponsor of the resolution to be changed define the amendment as either friendly, acceptable, or unfriendly, unacceptable. If a single sponsor states their position as unfriendly, the amendment is discarded and the voting procedure continues. Having said that, are there any amendments on the floor? Recognizing the delegate of the Russian Federation.
Honorable Chair, the delegation wishes to strike subclause 2A.
This amendment is in order. We will now ask the sponsors whether this amendment is friendly or unfriendly. Switzerland.
Unfriendly.
Germany.
Unfriendly.
USA.
Unfriendly.
Seeing that all sponsors call this amendment unfriendly, it will not pass. Having said that, are there any other amendments on the floor? Seeing none, we will move upon voting procedure. Any delegations who wish to vote in favor of this resolution, please raise your placards high and now. All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing as there is a clear majority in the vote in favor, this resolution passes and is now an official UN resolution. Clapping is in order. Switzerland.
Honorable Chair, the delegation of Switzerland would like to adjourn the meeting.
This motion is in order and requires a vote to be accepted. Having said that, are there any delegations wishing to vote in favor? Please raise your placards high now. Seeing a unanimous majority, this motion clearly passes and the meeting is adjourned. The resolution was successfully accepted and has now become an official UN document. Congratulations. Thank you for your kind attention and we hope to see you next year as well. We'll be glad to answer any questions you may have, so please don't